And it was just really, really awkward. And you just think about like the loss of efficiency and the loss of innovation that happens in an M&A scenario. It's profound, and so we think about ways that you could unintentionally or accidentally or didn't see it coming, multiple IDPs. But there's also strategic reasons for multiple IDPs as we think about maybe different user types. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's a myriad reasons as to how and why this could happen. Why don't we just segue into showing you
Love
what
it.
the art of the possible is?
Sounds great.
Fantastic. Let's actually switch over to this environment. So what I'm trying to do here is, unbeknownst to the end user, we're actually sitting between the user and the application. It doesn't matter if the application is a modern one or a legacy one, as I mentioned before, we're sitting in that user journey. So what's happening now is the Mavericks orchestrator, our fabric, is actually sitting in front of you and sitting in front of that application journey and saying, we don't yet know who you are. Let's go ahead and authenticate you. So this web page that you're seeing is actually delivered by our orchestrator. We don't often do this. You certainly don't have to let your users know that Strata ever even exists, but it does show nicely for a demonstration. So here, I've got 4 different identity providers, all of them different tenants that are unique to themselves, all with a different user population that they can serve. So the user can either opt into which one they go to, or we can do more advanced routing logic that says, give us your username, and then we'll make forking logic based on that. We could glean information about where you're coming in from based on the source IP address. If you're coming in from Nuco, we're just going to automatically send you to Nuco. There's lots of different ways to do it. But for demonstration purposes, we're just going to let the users opt in.
Got it. And that makes sense. So in the scenario of if I came in as Mark at Strata versus M. Callahan or Chef Mark, those might be 3 different user profiles that I have in 3 different user types, but you could automatically suss out who that is without having the dropdown itself. You were just showing the dropdown for display purposes.
That's exactly right.
Gotcha.
So we'll go ahead and kick off this party, and we're going to go ahead and log into, in this case, intro. And if I could type sonar, that would still be wrong.
Still, as everyone knows, this is live demos. So yes, no smoke and mirrors. This is all real cooking in the kitchen.
Absolutely. Got the spices moving. All right. So now we went to Entra ID for authentication. It may or may not have wanted to do multi-factor checks. That's really how it gets configured. And so we hand off to your IDP what it does so it can do what it does really, really well. And then it came back to us. And now you'll notice we're still not at the application. We went back to the orchestrator because now, if you remember that introduction to orchestration, we're now saying we know who you are. You've successfully authenticated, but now there are additional gates that we want to go through. So what happened behind the scenes, it goes so quickly, and that's why we created this pause point, is we actually called out to an external API engine to say, look, Alan has successfully logged into Entra ID or wherever. And now he's trying to get access to an application, and sometimes he can get access to that application as a business analyst. Other times he can come in as an administrator. So Alan can tell us, what context am I coming into the application? This, again, isn't ever required, but it certainly flexes some of the muscles that we can do for orchestration. And the way that we do that is through our runtime execution of everything that we do. So following down here in step 1, this is pretty much identically to what we built out here for you. The user comes in and they try to get to an application on the right. Doesn't matter what type. We then kick out to one of the authentication providers based on the type of the user it is. And then when it comes back to us after that successful authentication, Entra ID sent me back information in the form of claims about Alan. I know his email address, I know his first name, last name, maybe some basic role level information, whatever Azure is set up to give me. Now we can do all kinds of great things. I can go to an LDAP directory and I can get additional information about Alan, so I can use it for policy decisions. I can use it to decorate a session for personalization for customers. I can go ahead and do additional things so that I can get the right context to the application just at the moment that it's needed. But there's also lots of other power and flexibility that can happen here. If you have a central authorization engine, Plain ID, Axiomatics, Amazon verified permissions, whatever it is that's important to your organization, either now or into the future, we can make callouts to gather the context, pass it to those engines, and then they decide whether or not we allow or disallow the access. And then ultimately, we supercharge the token that the application is natively expecting. So in this case, we're going to go to an application that's built just before federation technologies are there. And so we're going to take some of the information that we got from the IDP, and then we're going to supercharge it with the additional information that we did at runtime before they get out there. And architecturally, this happens similar to the subway slide that I showed you earlier. It doesn't matter what we're using or how many identity providers are in the ecosystem. They're just parts of the fabric that we interact with. And then we can call out to other stuff and then ultimately let you out to the application wherever you need to be. So let's show this whole thing wrapping up. I'll actually go to the application itself and we'll show the summation of that. Now, the application is not terribly exciting. It's just a reference application just to show you how the recipe can be cooked. But what I want to call your attention to is we built this application to echo back the things that it knows about the user.